What is up, everybody? Welcome back to This Day in History. It is September 6th, 2024, and as you know, it's not about the year, but it's about the magic of the date. I just spent just shy of 3 hours in DMV getting the title switched over to my brand new pickup. Well, it's brand new to me, but yeah, so good times. I have about an hour and some change before I have to be at work, so burn in this video real quick, and then I haven't eaten yet, so I need to eat, and then get my lunch and do my thing. So, birthdays. Let's start with the birthdays. 1860. Jane Addams was an American social reformer. She was a co-winner with Nicholas Murray Butler for the Nobel Peace Prize in 1931. But she was born on this day in 1860. 1888, a very distant relative of mine, Joseph P. Kennedy, was an American businessman and bureaucrat, and also the father of JFK, RFK, Teddy, Joseph Jr., and a bunch of daughters. So it's the Kennedys, President Kennedy's. This is President Kennedy's father. So President Kennedy's father's birthday is today. He was born in 1888. 1954, we see the birth of Carly Fiorina, American business executive and politician. 1962, we see the birth of Chris Christie, American politician. He was the governor of New Jersey. He actually ran for president. He's run for president a couple times, but just can't get any traction. He's not really, I don't think, he might be well-meaning, well-intentioned, but I don't think he's electable. So I think he's stopped trying because he's not running this time around. So typically, you get about two shots at running for president, and then after that, and this is true on both sides of the aisle. If you haven't clinched it in 2 tries, then the party tends to not back you. So, 1963, we see the birth of Dutch politician Geert Wilders. Also, as a side note, yesterday we talked about John Dalton. He was a British scientist that it was on yesterday in 1766 was his birthday. Well, Britannica.com has stated that it's possible that he was either born yesterday or he was born today. So 1766 is the birth year of John Dalton. I don't know why someone's just honking their horns, but oh well. 1766 was the year he was born, but it's unclear as to whether he was born September 5th or September 6th. So with that said, we have 1792, French revolutionary leader Georges Danton. He was elected deputy for Paris to the National Convention. He was one of the revolutionaries, and he was elected their deputy. World War I, 1914. The French and British forces, they launched an offensive against the advancing Germans, and this is the first Battle of the Marne. 30 years later, it's World War II. We have Germany firing its very first long-range V2 missile at Allied targets. 1966, South African Prime Minister Hendrik Verwoerd was stabbed to death by a temporary parliamentary messenger who was later ruled to be insane. So the messenger who killed him never stood trial by reason of insanity. Interesting thing about Verwoerd is that not only did he develop, but he applied the policies that led to the apartheid there in South Africa. And if you don't know what apartheid is, it was the systemic and legal racism of the blacks by the white powers that be. Funny enough, I knew a South African, and you can tell that he had that South African drawl, which is really what happens when you get Dutch and English kind of mix. I mean, that's kind of what Afrikaans is. The language of Afrikaans is, it's kind of like a mix of Dutch and English, and probably local dialects as well. But one thing that he said to me is like the reason why he had immigrated to America was because it was South Africa was becoming a black country. And while I really liked the guy, I really enjoyed talking to him. It was highly racist of him to say that, considering that, well, Africa is, that's where the blacks, originated from. And to say that it was a black country, well, duh, it was their country before the Dutch came and colonized it. So, I mean, it was, anyway, apartheid was just, it was legalized racism, and it finally met its end, and rights were restored to the locals through, a lot of hard work of the likes of like Nelson Mandela. He spent 20 years in prison fighting the good fight, and then he ended up becoming president of South Africa. He was he was a humanitarian, to say the least. I don't know if this Hendrik Verwoerd was a bad guy or what. I think he was looking out for the interests of those who he thought were his people. However, by disenfranchising the natives, it's kind of like here in the United States, like we have this issue with, this is our land, the foreigners shouldn't be here. And then the Native Americans are like, well, you guys were the foreigners, so, maybe y'all should go back to Europe. So it's kind of the same thing there, really. 1991, the Soviet Union recognizes the independence of Baltic states, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. 1995, American baseball player Cal Ripken Jr., he played his 2,131st consecutive game, surpassing Lou Gehrig's record, which stood for over 56 years. 1997, so we talked about Lady Diana, Princess Diana, being killed last week in a car crash because the paparazzi were chasing them down, and their driver was drunk and he should have never been behind the wheel. That funeral for Lady Diana was held on this day in 1997. It was televised to an estimated 2.5 billion people watching. Elton John had performed a revised rendition of his hit song Candle in the Wind that he had dedicated to her. He caught a lot of flack for that, which I thought was just stupid and pointless. They're like, how dare he change this classic of his? Well, first of all, it's his song that he can change, and second of all, it was a tribute to his to someone who he had been friends with. So there was a lot of love and respect to Lady Diana's memory, and I thought there was no better tribute than what he did there. So, kudos to him. On this day in 2007, Italian opera singer Luciano Pavarotti, who is hands down declared like one of the best opera singers of his range in the 20th century. He died on this day at the age of 71. Unfortunately, another person that has passed away. It's all death here. I'm sorry. 2019, Zimbabwean politician Robert Mugabe. He died at the age of 95. He was prime minister from 1980 to 1987, and then he was also president of Zimbabwe from 1987 to 2017. And our featured event is the 1901 assassination of U.S. President William McKinley. It is on this day that he is fatally shot He was a Republican president. He was our 25th president. He served from 1897 to his death in 1901. He was shot on this day in 1901, so September 6th, 1901. He was shot by an anarchist, Leon Czolgosz. It looks like it's Polish or something like that. Maybe it might be Czech. I'm not sure. I'm not really too familiar with. It looks like it's a name from that region, I should say. Czolgosz. McKinley was shot at the Pan American Exposition in Buffalo, New York. He would die from this shooting 8 days later. So 8 days from now, which would be the 14th, is when he would actually pass. So that's it for this day in history. I have to scoot. I got to get lunch, and then I got to get me something to eat. So be well, be blessed, take care, my friends, and we will do this again tomorrow for September 7th, 2024. All right? Take care. Bye.